channel. This is Dr. Wanda Coleman with Empowered by the Word Midweek, and I am so happy to be with you today. Today, we are going to talk about the dangers and lessons of unchecked emotions. The dangers and lessons of unchecked emotions. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and for the next 4 Wednesdays at 7 p.m., we're going to talk about this topic, the dangers and lessons of unchecked emotion. So let's just get into it because if you know anything about me, I like to get right into it because I don't want to keep us long and I want to get to the point. So, emotions, what are emotions? Emotions are how individuals deal with matters or situations they find personally significant. We all have emotion, right? Emotion is defined as a natural, instinctive state of mind deriving from one's circumstances, mood, and relationships with others. So we all have emotions, and something about emotions, it states here it's a natural instinctive state, right? So they come naturally. Emotions are something that we all have, and if we do not check our emotions, they can be dangerous. They can lead us to do some things. So we want to get into that today. We want to talk about that today. And why did I use unchecked? Because in the US of A, in the USA, we're always talking about checking something. We're going to check somebody, we're going to check on someone. And normally, when we hear that language, we hear it in the instance of we're going to correct something, we're going to put something in alignment, we're going to adjust something, we're going to go and make sure that it's right. So if it's left unchecked, it means it's out of balance, it's out of alignment, it's something that we have to make sure is right because it can go out of whack. So when we talk about emotion, we know that from the definition that emotions are natural. And it tells us even in the Bible in Ephesians 4 and 26, in your anger, do not sin. So we find out even there, it's okay to be angry, but if anger is left unchecked, it can lead us to sin. How do I know? Well, let's ask Cain and Abel about that. In Genesis, we have the story of Cain and Abel, and Cain, he brought God a sacrifice and offering, and so did his brother Abel. And it tells us in the Bible that, God was more pleased with Abel's offering. And Cain felt some kind of way about that. He was angry, so much so that he killed his brother. So that lets us know that he was angry, but he didn't check his emotion. He didn't see where that anger. He didn't go deeper to see why he was feeling the way that he was feeling, because God told him, if you do what is right, won't you be accepted? So we're going to talk about the emotion of frustration tonight. Frustration. Has anyone ever been frustrated before? I know I have. Frustration is what we're going to talk about today. So, when we talk about emotions, we're going to get to frustration. But as we talk about emotions, emotions are often indicators that point to something deeper that needs to be paid attention to more fully. So if you're feeling some kind of way about something, it's an indication that something else is there. Emotions are reactions that humans have. We experience emotion in response to events, to circumstances, to situations. And emotion is oftentimes connected to an experience. And that kind of emotion that is determined by that experience or that situation or that circumstance, it triggers an emotion. So, for example, if you've seen someone before that made you mad or frightened you, the sight of them may make you feel some kind of way. That's an emotion that's being stirred, right? So, frustration. What is frustration? Well, frustration defined as the feeling of being upset or annoyed. Okay, especially because of the inability to change or achieve something. So, oftentimes, when we're trying to do something and we can't do it, we may experience some frustration with that. So, we're going to talk about Moses today. And in Numbers chapter 20, I'm just going to read some of it to you so we can set the tone and the foundation of where we're going. Moses chapter 20, it says, excuse me, Moses chapter 20, Numbers chapter 20, it says, starting at verse 1, in the first month, the entire Israelite community entered the Zin desert, and the people stayed at Kadesh. Miriam died and was buried there. Now there was no water for the community, and they assembled against Moses and Aaron. Then the people confronted Moses and said to him, if only we too had died when our brothers perished in the Lord's presence. Why have you brought the why have you brought the Lord's assembly into this desert to kill us and our animals here? Why have you led us up from Egypt to bring us to this evil place without grain, figs, vines, and pomegranates, and there's no water to drink? So let's just stop right there before we go any further. In this particular chapter, the people are experiencing a lot at one time. Miriam has died. Miriam has been with them, has come out of Egypt with them. She was the one rejoicing when they crossed the Red Sea. She was there. Now she's gone, and here they are in this wilderness. They're wandering in this wilderness, and they've been in this place for a very long time, and they do not have no food. They don't have any grains. They don't have figs, no vines, no pomegranates, and they do not have water. And the thing about water is if you don't get water after so many days, you can die, you can perish. So it is a crucial situation. And they're bringing these concerns to Moses and Aaron because Moses is the one that God chose to bring the people up out of Egypt. And because Moses, thought he couldn't do it because he was not eloquent of speech, God said, you know what? I'm gonna let your brother Aaron go with you too. He will speak for you. He will go and speak what I say. He will go and speak, be your mouthpiece. So here they are. The people are frustrated. The people are complaining, and they're taking their complaints to Moses and Aaron, and Moses is their leader. So Moses is in a leadership position. Moses is the one that hears most of their problems firsthand. Moses is the one that people are turning to for answers. So he is in a place where he he wants to know, Lord, these are your people. What do I do? And we're talking about the dangers and lessons of unchecked emotion. So let us keep reading. It says here in verse 6, Moses and Aaron went away from the assembly to the entrance of the meeting tent, and they fell on their faces. Then the Lord's glory appeared to them. The Lord spoke to Moses, you and Aaron, your brother, take the staff and assemble the community, assemble the people. In their presence, tell the rock to provide water. In their presence, speak to the rock. You will produce water from the rock for them and allow the community and their animals to drink. He's saying, speak to the rock. In another translation, this is the CEB that I'm reading from, but in the New International Version, it says, speak to that rock before their eyes, and it will pour out its water. You will bring water out of the rock for the community so they and their livestock can drink. So God has given them instruction. God has given Moses instruction. But let's keep reading. Moses took the staff from the Lord's presence as the Lord had commanded him. Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly before the rock. He said to them, listen, you rebels, should we produce water from the rock for you? Then Moses raised his hand and struck the rock with his staff twice. Out flooded water so that the community and their animals could drink. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you didn't trust me to show my holiness before the Israelites, you will not bring this assembly into the land that I am giving them. Moses was frustrated. So let's talk about some of the dangers of being frustrated. Number one, a danger of being frustrated is that you can disqualify yourself. You can disqualify yourself. Are you on the verge of disqualification because you are frustrated with the way things are going? You are frustrated with the way things are going. You're tired of hearing the complaints. You don't have answers, and instead of doing what you know is right, you're kind of doing your own thing out of frustration. And doing our own thing will disqualify us from what God has for us. It will disqualify us. Another danger here of unchecked emotion, a danger of frustration, is that we do not follow instruction. When we're frustrated, we're taking matters oftentimes into our own hands. And when we do that, we do not follow instruction. They did well in the beginning. God told Moses to go take the staff, assemble the people, and speak to the rock. And Moses and Aaron, they did that. They gathered the assembly before the rock. And here's where they messed up. God did not tell Moses to say anything to the people. He told Moses to speak to the rock. He told Moses to speak to the rock. But instead of speaking to the rock, he struck the rock. So dangers, and when we're talking about dangers, we're talking about the possibility of suffering harm or injury. It's the possibility of something unwelcomed or unpleasant, right? So a danger of frustration is that you will strike instead of speak. We will strike instead of speak. And what I mean by that, we see Moses took the staff and he hit the rock twice instead of speaking to it. So sometimes in our frustration, we get so bent out of shape, we want to hit something. You know, when we need to walk away, when we need to perhaps take a breath, when we need to perhaps begin to speak and pray and do these things that will calm us and bring us peace, we'll strike instead of speak. So Moses, he did not follow instruction. He disobeyed God. And another thing, another danger with frustration is that it will lead us to think that we are the source. Moses didn't understand that him and God was not on the same level. They wasn't 50-50 in this relationship. Right? They wasn't 50-50 in this relationship. Moses is a child of God. God is God Most High. We are the children. He is Abba Father. So the fact that he thought that, you know what, me and God, we're gonna go ahead and give you water. Moses wasn't giving anybody water. Moses was just to follow direction so they can see the holiness of God and see that it is God that is their source. God is their source. So a danger of frustration is you will become blind to leading effectively. If there's any leaders that's in my midst that's hearing this today, watch how you lead, especially if you're leading in frustration. We don't want to have blind spots and think that we are the source and think that we're doing all of this stuff solo. It is God that puts us in position. It is God that have us lead before the people. And it is God whom we need to put our trust in and realize he is our source. So when we operate in frustration, one of the dangers is that we will put our trust in something other than God. We will begin to put our trust in ourselves and become prideful. So those are some of the dangers. But what are some of the lessons that we can learn from this story? One of the lessons is that don't allow frustration to disqualify you from God's best for you. Don't allow frustration to disqualify you from God's best for you. If you are experiencing frustration, step back, take a walk, take a breath. Don't answer that email that day. Don't answer that call that day. Take a moment and think before you act. Don't act out of frustration because you just might disqualify yourself from God's best for you. Another thing that we learn, a lesson learned, is that follow instructions. Follow instructions, and don't assume that God will uh, do something or give you something that you've asked for the same way. See, in another book, I do believe it was Exodus 17, Moses was instructed to strike the rock, and the rock flowed with water. That's how God told him to do it in Exodus 17. But in Numbers chapter 20, he's telling Moses to speak to the rock. So follow instructions and don't assume that God is going to show up and do something that you've asked him for or he's done before the same way. God, he doesn't report to us. He doesn't answer to us. The way that he decides he wants to do something, he can change it up if he wants to, because he's not in a box. And we shouldn't put God in a box. And when we expect God to do something that he's done before the same way, we are putting God in a box. We are basically saying this is the way that you show up. And he's saying, no, I can show up any way that I choose to show up. So follow instructions and don't assume that he's going to show up the same way all the time. Also, one of the lessons that we learn is don't abuse your authority. So here in Numbers chapter 20, he told him to take the staff. The staff represented authority, but he didn't tell him to use the staff. He didn't say go before the people and lecture them. He didn't say go before them and talk down to them. At the end of the day, the Israelites were God's children. He cares about how they are treated. Even though that they were being contentious, even though they were complaining, Moses as their leader was not to go down and stoop down to their level. Moses as their leader was not to abuse his authority by hitting the rock twice or talking down to them. Don't abuse your authority. If you are a leader, don't abuse your authority. Another thing we can learn, another lesson is trust God because he is our source. He's our source. And while we're talking about it, if you are a leader, don't allow the people to change you and how you lead them. See, Moses was frustrated here. Moses was frustrated because the people were frustrated. The people were coming at him a certain kind of way, and he got to a point where he was coming back at them the way they were coming at him. Don't allow the people to change you and to change how you interact with them and to change how you lead them. You are the leader for a reason. Yes, people are coming to you for answers, and sometimes we don't have all of the answers. And that's when we need to step back and pray and be truthful and transparent. And we also need to be reminded that the people, they're looking for someone to lead them. They don't need someone ready to rebel and ready to fight just like they are. They need someone with a cool head. They need someone who can bring balance. So don't allow the people to change you and how you lead them. Also, a lesson that we learn is that frustration is often a sign of unbelief. A lot of times when we get frustrated, if we're totally honest, it's because we are in a place where we're not quite believing. It's, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. And sometimes we're not quite believing that God can do this, or God will do it, or God will he do it for me? And if we're dealing with frustration, we need to get under that a little bit and ask ourselves, do I trust God? Do I trust what he's saying? Do I believe what he's saying? Do I believe that he can do this? So don't allow frustration to make you waver and doubt and be tossed about. Frustration is often a sign of unbelief. And if you're dealing with frustration, begin to get under that and find out, what is it that you're having a problem believing? Are you having a problem trusting God? Are you having a problem believing that God can do it for you? And also remember that God is holy. The thing here, it says in verse 12, Numbers 20, verse 12, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you didn't trust me to show my holiness before the Israelites, you will not bring this assembly into the land that I am giving them. Now think about that. Moses and Aaron had been with the Israelites for years, wandering in the wilderness. Moses was leading the people, and his objective was to lead them to the promised land. And because he acted out of pocket, because he was angry with the people, because he was frustrated, he expressed himself in a way that he shouldn't have. But ultimately, he didn't trust God. He didn't trust God to show himself as holy. And he paid for that. He did not get to go to the promised land. He did not get to lead the Israelites into the land that they had been promised. Joshua picked up the mantle and picked up that assignment after Moses died. So the dangers and lessons, that's what we're talking about today. The dangers and lessons of unchecked emotion. We don't want to have unchecked emotion. We don't want to be in a place where we're dealing with unchecked emotion. Frustration. Think about why you're frustrated. Get under that. And don't allow frustration to disqualify you from God's best for you. So I just wanted to leave you with this. Next Wednesday, we will be again talking about the dangers and lessons of unchecked emotion. That will be Wednesday. We'll meet at 7 p.m. on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. So until we meet again, have a blessed day and be a blessing. Know that I love you and God loves you more. And remember, be empowered by the word. Thank you for coming to my YouTube channel. Thank you for listening today. I ask that you subscribe to my channel. Hit the bell, ring the bell so that you can receive notification when I come on live. And I look forward to being with you again next week. Have a blessed day, everyone.